This is Open Mind Alexander Technique. I'm Jess. This is one of the very few videos where I'm taking time to respond to a current event and what I think Alexander Technique can bring to the table here. This week, the US military has been deployed in Los Angeles, and it's terrifying and extremely stressful. And as I'm keeping an eye on this situation and very concerned that it's going to spread and escalate and come here to Denver, I think about what is it that I can offer? What do I have to bring to this as an Alexander Technique teacher? Well, I work with habits, I work with regulation, I work with encouraging people to examine the side effects of their actions and the ways in which they might be causing harm, either to themselves or to others. And isn't that what this is really about? When people look at a group of people, such as immigrants, such as trans people, liberals in general, when you treat them as a group, as if this group of people is other, you are setting yourself up to be manipulated by people who stand to gain power from your anger at them, which is exactly what's happening. Where we have this insane level of power grab happening at the federal level in the US right now, the thing that I can offer, I think, is Alexander Technique and my teaching as a skill set to respond to this. So I would like to encourage everyone to go through a few minutes of a seated active rest, which is what we call it. You can think of it as kind of like a seated guided meditation, sort of, but it's a little bit more mentally active than like just a relaxation meditation kind of thing. So that's what we're going to look at today. I wanted to give the context for this first, so that if I were to just dive straight into the guided talk portion of it, I think I would catch a lot of people off guard. So if this is a time when you really don't want to dive into this material, or you just need a break because you've been diving in and maybe this is not the time, then this doesn't have to be something that anyone engages with if they don't want to. So I encourage you to find a comfortable seated place. Feel free to make any adjustments that you need. If you need to put some sort of support behind your back, go ahead and do that. Feel free to pause for a bit to go get something and come back. I encourage you to take the time to allow regulation for yourself. One of the things that can come up when we're in these constantly activated states is we don't really get the time, or we don't make the time in order to regulate ourselves and have at least a couple minutes where, for right now, I'm going to have internal quiet time. So, as you're sitting, I encourage you to bring your attention to your breath. Go ahead and give some thought deliberately to the news you've read this week, and keep breathing. When we start to associate stressful news and fear and anger with holding breath, holding tension, it can be really hard to untangle that. So I encourage you to take a minute and do it on purpose. Consider what is happening right now. There are currently more members of the US military in and around Los Angeles than there are in Iraq and Syria combined. And I will breathe. Both things are true. If I'm particularly congested, which I am a bit congested today, I'm allowed to breathe through my mouth if that's easier. It's not something I'm going to make a permanent habit, breathing through the mouth. But if I don't have enough room in the nose pipes to get enough air to pass through there, then I'm allowed to use my mouth. As I breathe, I'm going to bring some attention to the release of this soft nestled connection between my skull and my spine. Where that's located is between my ears and behind my nose. And I can think about allowing that nice soft connection between the skull and the top vertebra of the spine. It's nicknamed Atlas because it holds up the world, holds up the globe of my skull. And I can breathe. I'm allowing the connection of skull to C1, Atlas, my first cervical vertebra. That's where we get the word C1 from, first cervical vertebra. It's numbered from the top down. And I can notice that connection and ask it to be soft. And breathe. And simultaneously know that Texas also just announced that they will be deploying the National Guard against their own citizens as well. And I will breathe. And I will allow that soft connection of skull to spine. Next, I'm going to bring my attention to my seat. I'm going to allow the surface that I'm sitting on, whether that's a chair or in this case what I'm actually sitting on is my Alexander Technique table for doing table work, which is a massage table. So I'm allowing that surface to really take my weight. And I'm allowing my legs to release into that surface so that I'm not trying to pull my legs up and off of the chair table that I'm on. Leg release is also very connected to breath for a few different reasons, but the main one is we've got a muscle called the psoas muscle that runs between the inner corner of the thigh all the way up to the front of the spine, fairly high up. And it interconnects with the diaphragm, which is our main driving force behind breath. So if I let go of my legs and really let the chair or the surface that I'm sitting on take the weight of my legs for me, it will free up that pull of that psoas muscle from my diaphragm, and I'll get a little bit easier, more fluid movement of my breath. And I will do this while knowing that people are being kidnapped by the US government and disappeared and sent to prison camps. And I will breathe. And I will keep letting go of my legs, even with this knowledge that I have of what's happening around me. I'll bring my attention back to the connection of my skull to my spine, asking for softness, asking for ease and that little nestled connection of the globe of my skull onto my top vertebra of my spine. These check-ins are really useful throughout the day, particularly if you're a person whose job involves a lot of sitting in chairs. These 3 check-ins are things that you can add in for like 10 seconds at a time, sprinkled throughout your day. My breath, my head and neck, my legs. Those three I find are very impactful, and they can really change the way that I am organizing myself and also the way that I feel. It's really well established in, medical and movement literature at this point that when we can slow down our breathing and make breathing free and easy and have a fluid interchange of inhales and exhales, there's some really great physiological benefits to that. It's one of the main things that they'll work on with like biofeedback therapy and things like that. When we slow down breath, that can help improve heart rate regulation, and it can in turn create this domino effect of lowering some of our stress hormone production, which is great. So I encourage you all to take this with you, add this to your toolkit as we navigate the next few weeks in particular. I don't think that this is a sprint, this is a marathon of dealing with this. This will not end soon. But we have tools. We have ways to check in and take a few seconds at a time to regulate and then go on to the next thing that we're going to do. If you are going to go out and make your voice heard and protest this weekend with the big military parade happening in DC that coincides with the guy in charge's birthday, which is some real North Korea stuff, if you're going to go protest, please be safe. And remember that if you're out and walking for long periods of time, you still exist, and you can still check in with yourself during that process. I wish you all luck and safety over the next few weeks.